Welcome to the People of AI podcast, showcasing inspiring people with interesting stories in the field of artificial intelligence. I'm Ashley Oldacre. Let's jump right in. This podcast is sponsored by Google. Any remarks made by the speakers are their own and are not endorsed by Google. Hi, everybody. Super excited for another episode of the People of AI podcast. I'm here with my fantastic co-host, Gus.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
And Gus, we're super excited, and I'm super excited to be here with you and with our new guest, Tris Warkentin. Welcome, Tris.
Hi, great to be here. So glad to join the podcast.
This is a very special episode for us because I get to interview you, and we've known each other for a while, and I get to be with Gus, and we get to hear about the incredible things that you have just launched and been a part of. So before we do that, let me jump in and read your bio, and then we'll get to know you a little bit more. So Tris Warkentin leads product management efforts for Google DeepMind's next generation AI research, working to achieve artificial general intelligence, or AGI for short. Previously, he led the product management team for Google Brain, the birthplace of many key AI innovations such as the Transformer and TensorFlow. In Brain, Tris led critical launches including Bard, Palm, Lambda, Imagen, text-to-image, text-to-video, and many more. In a previous life, Gus and I worked with Tris on the TensorFlow team, where Tris led and fostered cutting-edge AI work in production at Google scale. Tris also spent 5 years leading ML-driven automation in Google Display Ads. Welcome.
Well, I have to say, I'm a little bit embarrassed. I'm blushing a little bit, but really excited to be here with both of you, and especially just after launching something that I really love with Gus. Gus and I worked very hard on this together, so excited to talk a little bit more about Gemma.
Very excited to hear about it, too. But before we do that, with all our guests, we want to get to know you a little bit better. So take us as far back as you like. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, man. Well, I am a bit of an atypical kind of Google product manager in a lot of ways. I grew up mostly in Massachusetts. I was born in Colorado, the beautiful state of Colorado, in Colorado Springs. And I spent most of my childhood actually outside of Boston. And for most of what I would consider my more formative years, I lived in sort of apple country in the middle of the state in Stone, Massachusetts. Very interesting kind of place, filled with a lot of apples, trees, and golf courses, and, nerds like me, basically. So I had a very different kind of background than a lot of the people you've probably had on the show, in an interesting and fun kind of way, I hope. Both of my parents were actually musicians. And so I played violin very seriously growing up, and I actually thought that I would be a professional violinist for a lot of my childhood, which I would imagine you probably have never heard on the show before. But music is still a big part of my life, and I absolutely love playing music of various kinds.
I did not know this about you, and we've known each other for a while. Gus, did you know this?
No, I didn't know that. That's we have a good team working on Gemma that loves music, right?
I think that's true. Yeah, there are a bunch of people on the Gemma team that have some kind of musical roots, actually, which is pretty fun as well. Maybe someday we can get together and jam. Now I play, guitar and drums and things like that. But I also played trumpet and all of these kinds of, jazz ensembles and things like that. That was always a real blast. Do you play any instruments, Gus?
I play berimbau, which is a Brazilian instrument for capoeira. But it's hard to jam with that because it's a different instrument.
Yeah, I don't think I can do the dancing or the break dancing or the capoeira moves.
I can do that part.
But I'll give it a try. All
right. So you grew up in a very musical family. How did your entry into tech connect with that, or did it connect with that, or?
I would say it's not particularly connected, but I would say that it instilled in me a sense of practice. I mean, if anybody has ever taken music very seriously, being able to practice and really focus at something, and even when it's not that fun, and get through the hard parts so that you can achieve something that sometimes the difference is not really that noticeable to somebody who wouldn't be very focused on the effort. I think that's very true for technology as well. We spent a lot of effort during this Gemma launch to get a lot of things right that nobody in the world will ever know. It just sort of lives rent-free in my head for the rest of my life, in both good and very challenging ways. I think that gave me a good education. But it was also a huge part of my entertainment growing up. We didn't have a television for most of my childhood. And so my only entertainment, pretty much the only things that I did were I'd play with my brother, I would play music, and I would read books. And I'm an avid reader. I absolutely love to read. That's my primary source of entertainment today. And I credit just that love of reading and maybe the absence of other highly entertaining things to do with equipping me with the ability to learn new things and adjust fast and really appreciate different perspectives. So I think those are really critical to my path to become a product manager and also towards technology in general. I always loved technology. I love building things. I love making things. And I actually think understanding how instruments work is not that dissimilar in a lot of ways to understanding how something like a computer works or how the internet works or why a model does what it does. And so just that thirst to know, that thirst to understand, I think that's a really important part of who I am and what I grew up with.
So you grew up with music, you grew up in Apple Country, and you also started at an early age figuring out and connecting the threads of how things work and how things are put together. So what was the first introduction into real tech? Like, was it a love for computers? Was it a love of video gaming? Was it in school that you sort of got deeper into this? Or did tech kind of come later? Were you just sort of already establishing yourself as more of a product manager of someone who's trying to figure how things work in life first before getting into tech and then applying it to tech? Or did it sort of come together?
I remember my very first, what you would consider tech nerdistry came because my dad had a box of books about programming, 2 books about BASIC and 1 book about Pascal. And so I learned that you could give computers instructions, that you could tell them to do things. And that set my overactive imagination aflame. I mean, I wanted to build things. I wanted to make things. I saw games. I saw computer programs that could do what I perceived to be very interesting, near magical things. And I could see myself making those things, right? And so I learned to program in BASIC and then a little bit of Pascal at a young age. And I always loved computers. I built my first computer with money that I scraped together from saving every penny that I had. I bought a motherboard kit and a separate case. And I still remember the exact price that I paid for the whole thing, which was $1,068, which at the time was just unbelievable. Still kind of crazy considering that you can get a computer for basically nothing today. Yeah. Or comparatively a lot less money. And I built it all by hand and I installed, my own OSs. I dual booted Linux and Windows. And I absolutely loved it. I loved the whole journey. And I always loved building things. I always loved technology. And I sort of stick by that. I think, learning from a fundamental when nobody's watching you, you say, oh, how does this computer work? Why does it do this thing? How would you trade off this component for that component? How do you make those choices? Nobody's there to guide you. You just sort of figure it out. That's actually a huge part of what makes product management awesome, is that it's a journey of discovery for you and also with your collaborators. And so I think that's carried a lot of what I've achieved and what I've cared about in my career. Now, how did I get started as a job in tech is also a somewhat strange phenomenon. I actually graduated high school a little bit early, but I made at the time a sort of chance decision that actually ended up being a really, really good decision, which is that I didn't graduate a whole year early, which happens a lot. Then you might have a gap year or you might go to college a year early. Instead, I graduated half of a year early. And so during that time, this is time that nobody will ever account for. Like if I didn't tell you, nobody would ever know.
Right.
And that extra space gave me some room to go find something. What are you going to do as a 17-year-old with 8 months before you go to college or whatever. Yeah. And I worked for a little tech company, a little startup in Cambridge, Massachusetts, down in Kendall Square in the Foundry building called Technologies. And they built, of all things, a natural language search engine. I know, right? And they're a spin out of MIT Media Labs, headed by Jane Chang, who was from MIT Media Labs, Mike McCandless. There was a guy, Ray Lau, who was one of the founders of 3Com, if I recall correctly, or was famous for Palm Pilot, which was a big thing back in the day.
Yeah, this is crazy because you ended up in search ads later on. So, wow.
It's super weird. And actually, they use this little dinky research language. I'm not going to say how old I am. I'm pretty old, but compared to a lot of tech. But this research language that nobody had ever heard of and literally got us laughed out of customer conversations called Python. And so the first language that I ever actually had a job and got paid for programming was actually Python. And I programmed stop words and grammar files and things like that because everything was obviously not deep nets at that point. It's just much more explicit kind of tree. By the way, they did really cool stuff. We did some really cool stuff that we still don't do today in something like Google Search. If you would ask, who are the top 10 free throw shooters in the NBA last year, it would just give you a table. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would literally just find the data, the structured data, do the analysis, and render you a table. It's pretty amazing, actually. Now, of course,
I'm not reacting to it because now it's normal. But at the time, it was probably.
This doesn't exist on Google Search today. The way that it works is that there's some website that does this, pre-computes those tables, then does SEO so that it's ranked at the top of Google Search. So you actually end up clicking through to somebody's website to see this same table, and they're doing it for the clicks, basically, for the ad clicks that you ultimately end up getting for such a thing, right? But we actually rendered it directly in the results, and customers were really interesting customers in this kind of area. Like we had Schwab, I remember was one of the very first initial customers, and they have a bunch of data, so you could do things like PE analysis of big cap companies and all this kind of stuff. Really, really interesting. I was a tech writing intern. So for all you technical writers out there or people who have ever been a technical writer, much love to you. I think tech writing is an awesome pursuit and requires a lot of technical focus, a lot of understanding, and an ability to both listen and create, which is a really unique and wonderful skill set, and I think shared by many of our wonderful developer advocate friends who work both on learning material development, and then advocacy.
Hey Tris, how was this beginning as tech writer? We've talked in the past, so I know that you have some cool stories around that. Can you share with us, please?
I was just a kid when I was hired as a tech writer. I was not even a fully fledged adult. I was actually 17, and I was hired by one of my very best friends in the world. Still today, he and I are very, very close. A man named David Poole, a real inspiration in my life. And David hired me, and he brought me in. And he said, hey, we have all of these manuals to write. Because at the time, you would make a big box of actual technical documentation guides, and you'd print them out, and you would bring them to your customers and give them a literal box that weighs as much as a human.
To each customer.
Yeah, to customers, as part of the package of how you would actually sell B2B software. And we had a lot of these things to write. And so he got me set up with a workstation. He said, here's Adobe FrameMaker, which was the sort of professional publishing tool that we were using. And I'd never used it before. Here's the manual for FrameMaker. Have at it. Why don't you see what you can do? By the way, I'm going on vacation for, I think, a couple weeks, and we'll see what you got when I come back. And so he just sort of cut me loose. And he said, have at it. Go
Good
write
luck.
some stuff. Yeah, exactly. And I, being, a very diligent, hardworking, eager beaver kind of guy, I sat down with the manuals. I tried my very best to do everything I could. And when he came back a couple weeks later, I'd written several hundred pages of technical documentation about our system. And I think he was gobsmacked at the time, just that anything had happened at all. Because, you have an underage intern, you set them loose in their very first job in a professional setting for a couple weeks, and you say, let's see how it goes. You probably don't expect that you'll come back to something along those lines. And who knows, that was probably all total junk. I probably really screwed it up looking back at it. But, we adapted it, and all of those things ultimately got published. We published all of those docs and those books. And somewhere, in probably some dumpster somewhere or in a landfill, there are actual physical books of documentation that I wrote about this product. Wow. That I have held in my own hands, which is a really fun experience as well, to hold a box and you're like, I wrote every single page of these thousands.
Wow.
It's just a weird experience in a lot of ways, and funny to have in the memory bank,
Yeah. Well, what initiative too? I mean, I think that speaks to just your sort of go-getter
I just didn't know
attitude.
any better. I honestly didn't know any better. When there's some, I forget what it is. There's some anecdote like this that I think it's in the movie A Beautiful Mind. The professor writes up some classically hard math problems on the blackboard, and John Nash supposedly comes in late. I don't know if this story is going to be accurate, so apologies to any viewers that are hearing this and it's totally inaccurate. But John Nash supposedly comes into the room late, and he thinks that they're homework questions, and he's just missed the homework assignment. So he goes home and he solves a couple of them. Right. So it's a story like that. When you don't know what your possibility is, when you don't have a belief, I can't do this, I shouldn't do this, I think anything is possible for most people. Right. And I think in this era of technology, it's more true than ever. Almost anyone can learn anything they want right now with Google, whether you're using Gemini, Google Search, YouTube, Docs, so many things that Google makes and many other people make too. You could learn anything today. And you could be an expert in most subjects in a year, 2 years, right? To at least a layman, right? Maybe you won't be a world-class expert, but if you want to learn how to build AI, there are endless resources. You can watch, I don't know how many thousands of hours of Gus lecturing about how to do really cool stuff with TensorFlow and many other pieces of technology. But it is incredible. I think it's genuinely amazing that we live in this era. And I think forget your limitations or what you believe your limitations are and just go get what you should be doing. Go find what you should be doing.
And so when you finished your internship, you're like, I should be a tech writer. So you went to college and that's what you did?
Oh, she's leading the witness, Your Honor. It was nonlinear. We will say that my education was nonlinear. So I graduated early from high school, and part of that was because I had a girlfriend who was a year ahead of me in school, and she went to college. And I thought, well, there's not really much point to me being here. If she's going to be many states away over in Ohio at a wonderful college called Kenyon College. And so I got my internship and I decided, hey, maybe I should also go to Kenyon College. And so I did. I followed her to college.
Oh, wow.
And it is an amazing school. I had a really wonderful time at Kenyon. But spoiler alert, at the time, there was not a computer science major at Kenyon. You could get a math degree that had a computational science kind of focus or something like that, but you could not get a computer science degree at all. It wasn't even a thing. And I don't know how much that dates me. I apologize. So I actually majored in philosophy and psychology and German literature, and I actually worked in tech.
Psychology, philosophy, and German literature.
Yeah, typical kind of tech degrees.
Very common background.
And it's funny, I tell people I Google this every once in a while, and people are like, what? How is this possible? And the truth is that I just have always loved building. I've always loved learning. I've always loved technology.
And thinking about all of those things.
Those things
connect.
Philosophy and psychology have so much relevance
Yeah.
to the work that I do every day. Absolutely, they are highly relevant to our jobs. German literature, maybe not so much, but is also very related to both philosophy and psychology, and that's maybe a subject for a different podcast. But I had such an incredible time in college doing, 3 majors. I did double honors. I did philosophy and psychology honors as well. And I got to do research, and my average class size, probably my mean class size, was something like 9.
Wow.
Because I took a lot of independent studies. I mean, I had classes where I would go to my professor's house and I would cook dinner with him and his wife. Or, I would go to a small cafe with, 2 other students, and we would talk about Heidegger or something like that. It was just absolutely incredible, like top notch. I genuinely think that I was so lucky to get an education that encouraged me to think deeply, to follow what I really wanted to do. And maybe I'm just that kind of person to some extent, like I make my own path anyway. And I encourage everybody else to do so as well, right? Don't let other people constrain you in what you think you can do. But it was an absolutely amazing experience. I absolutely loved it. But yeah, I worked in tech the whole way through to pay my way through college.
Oh, so that was
actually.
the thread.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when I worked for iPhrase, for that search company for a while. And then I joined a documentation consultancy with David, who had hired me at iPhrase, and did some other consulting for a few other companies, and then joined one of our clients after I graduated. And that was a really interesting experience as well. I joined as a tech writer, and that was the first time, probably about, I don't know, maybe 7-8 months after I graduated college and I was working as a writer at this company, the first time that anybody ever told me, hey, have you ever thought about being a product manager? And at the time I said no.
Did you even know what it was?
I did, because I worked with product managers. You know, when you're a tech writer, you typically work with product managers quite a bit. Yeah. And I was very lucky to have some amazing product managers who mentored me, some of whom went on to do very interesting things, you know, in payments space, in mobile AI, and lots of kinds of things like that. One of whom ran the AI group for mobile at Nuance, and really, really interesting kind of people who I still consider friends to this day.
Okay, so you learned about becoming a product manager, and is that how you got into Google?
Yes, actually, my first job at Google was being a product manager. I moved out to California and I joined another data science sort of company called
You weren't
Demand
following
Tech.
another girl?
I did, in fact, follow another girl. Who is my wife now and is an absolutely amazing person. She's also at Google and is also a product manager. So we definitely are very similar. She's exactly like me, but better at everything by a whole lot. So it's always good advice is always to find somebody that does that for you, who's able to make you better and is also hopefully a better version of the life you want to lead, you know. So my path to Google was also a little bit strange. I was working for this company that was a data science ML company. Today it would be called an AI company doing retail optimization, consumer products optimization, called Demand Tech. That was a really awesome job. I learned a lot of really interesting things, and I met people in the data science ML space who are so fascinating, and probably could have a whole podcast just about that experience. We got acquired by IBM and we got moved into a large unit inside of IBM. And that was really interesting as well. How is it that you can impact a large enterprise with many, many customers with AI in this space, and ML and data science at the time? Was really interesting challenge organizationally, and really interesting challenge sort of as a business that we would run. And I had a lot of interesting responsibility during that time as well. But I was in California. The bulk of the IBM business is in other parts of the world. And I didn't think that it was really, a great fit for a lot of the things that I actually wanted to do. And I'd been thinking about the change to PM as well. And so actually my wife said, hey, well, why don't you come to Google and try to do a PM job fundamentally? And I sort of laughed it off, right? Because I think Google is a dream company for me to work at. And especially in a product manager role. And this is 10 years ago. I joined in 2014. And so she referred me in, and they called me up and they said, hi, I'm here to schedule your Google PM phone interview. And I said, excuse me, what? Totally unexpected, honestly. And they gave me the interview, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was one of the most fun conversations I'd ever had with a PM who is a longtime analytics PM, really interesting guy. And he made the mistake of referring me to on-site interviews, and I did those. They made the mistake of referring me for hiring, and Google's been regretting its decisions ever since. But I've absolutely...
That's arguable.
Well, I mean, certainly most of Google has been regretting its decisions, but I appreciate that you guys still will have me in the room. But it's just been a wonderful 10 years of building things from ads to TensorFlow to Brain to Google DeepMind. Has just been such a journey to watch something that I believed in so strongly, even as, a non-adult, to go into an AI industry and think this has the potential to reshape what humanity can really do. And just now, I would say in the last few years, people are really getting it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You use AI today and you say, wow, this could change the way that I work, the way that I play, the way that I learn.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for other people to join me in this, sort of quest to make that real, not just a dream, but something that makes its way to products and experiences you use every day.
So your entry into AI started at Google when you were a product manager, already starting in search, or was there sort of an entry or an interest in AI even kind of before that?
Well, I mean, certainly, my first job is theoretically an AI job, right? It comes out of the MIT Media Labs for AI.
Right.
And then the job before I joined Google is sort of data science ML oriented, so also kind of AI-ish, right? In ads, I joined and I ultimately led a product called auto targeting and launched a whole bunch of really cool stuff in the ads area, which I actually think is one of the best places to learn to do data-driven product management, data-driven development. Insofar as, everything is measurable. You can measure the outcomes of whether your launch was good. Did people like it? Do they click on it more? Do they report feedback more? How often do they block the ads? All these kinds of things are all very good signals about whether what you're doing is actually good. And I think we built a lot of really cool things that reduced the ad load on the internet, that reduced the incidence of annoying ads. All of that kind of stuff was really great.
You've now shared with us this incredible journey of, from music into tech writing into, or even before, into, philosophy and psychology and then product management and sort of all of these things coming together. It feels like has really set you up for what you're working on now. And so I would love for you to tell us about what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love the way you said that, by the way, because I didn't really think about it as a journey that really does combine into the things that I love now. But I think you're totally right. What I work on now is research into artificial general intelligence. So that's my sort of day job in a lot of ways. We very strongly believe that AI has the potential to reshape what's possible for humanity, but that we're at the beginning of the AI era in a lot of ways. A lot of people like to think that we're in the middle of the AI era. I disagree. I actually think we might not even be in the middle of the beginning. We might be at the beginning of the beginning. When I look at the AI landscape today, there are so many things that our AI models today lack, that they cannot do, that you would consider fundamental to intelligence, right? Right now, you're nodding at me. You're sort of connecting with me on an emotional, a human level. That's something that is so far beyond the idea of what we have for AI today that it's going to take quite a bit of research and development to get the skills, the capabilities, and the understanding of how that works with society. So that's what I work on. I work on making sure that we can build some of those fundamental capabilities in a safe, responsible way and release them so that the world can use them, so that everybody has a stake in what the future is.
What does that mean, building fundamental capabilities?
Part of the promise of AI is genuine personalization.
Right.
You are a different person than I am. You want to talk to AI or you want to interact with computers in a different way than I do. But right now, AI doesn't remember things about you. It doesn't remember what you've told it. If you say, hey, look, stop trying to talk fancy to me, just, talk like a normal person, it'll do it for one response, maybe two if you keep on going in the conversation.
Right.
But eventually it'll just sort of revert to its normal modus operandi, right? But actually, you want that not to be. You want it to be able to remember who you are, remember what you tell it to remember. You want it to be able to take actions on your behalf. Hey, schedule a call with Ashley next week, or, hey, I can't make this next one. Would you let everybody know? Right now, those things are possible sort of in a mechanical sense, right? Maybe it would fire off an email that says, go ahead without me, I'll be 10 minutes later, or whatever it is, all those sorts of auto replies. But maybe actually the best way to let you know that I'm not going to make it is by text.
Right.
Right? Maybe the best way to let Gus know is over chat or by an email or something along those lines, or in the calendar invite or something along those lines. So there are so many flexible parts that we humans just sort of naturally adapt to that computers and AI fundamentally do not have those capabilities yet. Along with that are some that are budding, like multimodal understanding. Now you can feed images or video to Gemini 1.5, long context understanding. Unbelievable technical achievement, in my opinion. Being able to take like a long form video like this podcast, put it into Gemini 1.5 and ask it questions, hey, where did Tris grow up? Mm-hmm. And it will actually just tell you. I mean, that is an amazing capability, right? And that's just the beginning. That's the beginning of understanding something like video, images, the content between people. And of course, there are traditional ones, reasoning capabilities, specialist kind of capabilities. You can drive a car. Obviously, we build very specialized systems to do self-driving. There are many, many things that take a lot of specialization right now. For anyone listening to this podcast, I would highly recommend actually checking out a paper on which I'm a co-author called the Levels of AGI paper. So if you just Google Levels of AGI, you will find it.
We'll link it in the show notes too.
Oh, great. Absolutely. That's thank you. What we tried to do was to more crisply define the capabilities of AGI, what it means to be general, what it means to be specific, as well as some of the risks that we see concordant with some of those levels. So inspired sort of by the levels of self-driving, trying to create a more clear understanding of what AGI and general intelligence really means so that we can get beyond, fear-based understandings of AI, as well as, I think mistaken utopia kinds of conceptions of what advanced AI might bring.
And so I would assume, since we're bringing all of your background together, that your degree in philosophy would actually help with that imagining process very, very, very much, in the sense that you're having to really think about what intelligence is, how we want to replicate it, how this relates to different kinds of intelligences, and then how we want that ultimately to be beneficial to society in replicating it in an artificial way.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I love the connection back to philosophy. I think philosophy is mostly about understanding the great arguments between great thinkers of humanity. Interesting to think about how artificial intelligence might play a role in that discourse over the next 100 years or so. One thing that I think could be very interesting in terms of what role should, AI play, is it actually a replication of human intelligence? Is AGI something that should be about what humans can do? Or are AI systems fundamentally different from humans in many ways? Should we be trying to replicate human thought? I am unconvinced. I know that we take a lot of human anthropomorphic kind of approaches to some of these things, but I'm not convinced that that's the way that AI will actually develop. Think, for an example.
Nor should it, because I feel like we do place a lot of importance on human intelligence, but there's so many different kinds of other intelligences out there that are not given as much importance because it's not human intelligence. And I feel like that should also be, if we're building this artificial intelligence, I feel like it's important to even just start thinking about these questions.
I think you're right. Philosophy of human mind, philosophy of the mind, as an interesting discipline, is a very serious discipline, and how that relates to what you might think of as machine thought or other intelligences. I find that so fascinating. Let me just take an example of LLMs today.
Large language
Yeah,
models.
large language models. So large language models, they don't think in the way that humans do. I think it's often can be confusing for people to look at the output of a Gemini or other advanced model and say, oh, wow, that's very much like how a human might write that, and therefore there must be some human thought behind that. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a misconception in a lot of ways. And you see that when you have things like reasoning tasks, right? One of these canonical examples you'll always see on the internet is, I have 3 apples today. I ate 2 apples yesterday. How many apples do I have today? And for a human, even a child, that's a very simple question, right? Because you understand the flow of time, you're situated in the world. And for sequence models, large language models, for example, those are very, very challenging questions because they do not think in the same way that we do, which is I say, oh, well, yesterday and today are 2 disjoint things. Instead, it's just a correlation matrix between the words that get output, right? And that does paradoxically get much, much better as you increase the size of the model or the quality of the training of the model. But it's not because the model thinks more like a human. It just becomes better at doing a variety of reasoning tasks by finding associations between tokens.
That makes a lot of sense, and it also explains how, like, going back to your earlier point about how we're sort of really at the beginning of this. And I also wanted to say that it's fantastic that, historically, I feel like the field of artificial intelligence was very much for computer scientists, but now it's becoming more important than ever to include all different kinds of subject matters and subject matter experts to be able to sort of bring in to this and contribute to building out this artificial general intelligence concept. So it's so cool that you are able to use this combination of subjects and interests and studies into your work right now. So with this new birth of technology regarding the evolution of artificial general intelligence, and also tools like Gemini and new open models like Gemma, which you just released and were just a part of. And we would love for you to talk about this very exciting new development.
Yeah, Gus and I worked on Gemma together. Very excited for Gemma to go out. As we're recording this, we're just about a week post-release here. And the response has been phenomenal. So to those of you who have used Gemma, who have built on top of Gemma, thank you. I think it has been amazing to see. We're a week in. We've got nearly 400,000 downloads. We've got hundreds of variants. We're integrated across many, many AI platforms. You can run Gemma on your laptop locally. You can run it on GCP and Vertex and in Kubernetes. It can run in so many amazing places, and people are doing really cool things with it already. So very excited to see the progress there, and happy to talk a little bit more about the importance of open models, the open ecosystem, and open source at Google as contrasted to the open models projects.
First of all, I'd like to say the same thing that Tris said. Thank you for everyone that's already using Gemma. That's amazing. I've been working with the community for many years, and even with that, even all the planning, everything we did, I was still surprised by how much the community adopted and started doing things, and every day I found new stuff. But for those that are not still using Gemma, how would you define it for them, Tris?
So Gemma is a new family of models. The initial releases are 2 billion parameter and 7 billion parameter models, dense decoder-only language models. They're targeted directly at developers and researchers in the field. And there are many really interesting things in the field that could be important for developers. In this case, we're trying to connect Gemma back to the Gemini ecosystem in a lot of ways. So Gemma is built upon the same research and technology foundations that we used for the Gemini models. And we're hoping to build on that with the community so that we're empowering the community to build completely new AI things at pace with state-of-the-art models. So we're really excited by these initial releases, and you can go use them if you just look for Gemma and Gemma models. You can go use them on your favorite AI platforms, and you can query them very much like you would, a Gemini model. And you can also take them and put them on your computer and use them locally. And you can also do something called supervised fine-tuning. So you can adapt the models. And that, to me, is one of the most exciting parts, and something that we're already seeing is that many developers will take Gemma and they will adapt it for their very specific needs. And that will power new AI launches. So if you want to put AI in your app, there are very many cool ways of doing supervised fine-tuning, and we have a lot of examples, some of which are actually created by the inimitable Gus, that will enable you to adapt these models to the types of use cases that you want to have. So I hope that's a good enough overview. Gus, what would you add? I feel like I'm probably missing
No, that's
things.
great. The idea is that it's available for everyone, everywhere. You can just follow our guides or tutorials to start playing with it. And I guess one question that for more like not that many advanced users, but what's the difference to Gemini from your perspective?
So Gemini is our most advanced set of models, and they exhibit state-of-the-art performance in almost all AI tasks right now. And so looking at a model like Gemini Ultra 1.0, that's something that is a very large model, a very capable model with a whole lot of very interesting research and technology behind it. That needs to run on very specialized hardware that we have here at Google and very specialized infrastructure. So we use that to help build products at Google. So those are things that run on Google servers, and they can be used in many, many ways to build interesting AI developments with state-of-the-art performance. Gemma, on the other hand, is a smaller, more lightweight set of models, something that you can develop small applications on that can be used much more locally. They can run on a single GPU. One of the most exciting things about the Gemma program to me was that we also had the opportunity to integrate directly with a bunch of leading industry partners. So specifically NVIDIA, we shared the research and development with them before we released Gemma, and they optimized it directly for a wide range of GPU hardware and achieved incredible results, tens of thousands of tokens per second on a single host of generation, things like that that are just genuinely mind-boggling to me. When you think about that, that could enable you to, on a single GPU or a single TPU, you could run a large production service on a fine-tuned Gemma model. And that is a huge value to many AI developers, many AI researchers, people that want to try new things. And so I'm really, really excited about that. Our other major launch partner from a partnerships perspective was Hugging Face. And so we launched on day zero with Hugging Face, and we have an integration out to Vertex AI from Hugging Face. You can deploy directly to Vertex from Hugging Face. So go check out the Gemma family on Hugging Face, and you'll be able to go use it directly, both with inference APIs and their inference endpoints products, as well as transformers. It's optimized directly for Hugging Face transformers. So really, really excited. I think being able to bring the community in from day one has been a huge sea change in the way that Google approaches the AI market. And hopefully, over time, it means that we grow with the AI developer community.
So one of the cool things about Gemma is that we made sure to give the tooling to the community and meet them where they are. So we made sure to make as many tooling as possible to them, so they could start using, even if they're, I'm not a Keras developer, I'm not a TensorFlow developer. Don't worry, we have a PyTorch version, we have a JAX version, and it's available also on Hugging Face. So we tried to make sure that everyone could use and could benefit and could help build this amazing system. So this was something I'm very proud to be part of. So that was great. And the results we've seen, it's like unbelievable. So how do you see that, Tris?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point. I think meeting developers where they are is something that's near and dear to my heart. So, you want to develop in PyTorch, we have a reference implementation for that. You love TensorFlow, Keras 3.0 straight out the gate, right? You want to work on GPU, highly optimized directly by NVIDIA. You want to use our world-class TPU V5Es, that's exactly what we deploy in GKE and Vertex, right? So been a really interesting experience. The other one that I want to call out is one that we didn't even include that much in the launch announcements, called Gemma.cpp, and we put it up on GitHub. It reached #1 on Hacker News organically.
Wow.
In under a week, it has over 5K stars already on GitHub, and it is absolutely amazing. Deep CPU optimization that you can run locally on any computer, and on my computer, I get well over 10 tokens a second for the 7B model, and the quality is just genuinely outstanding. So really pleased by all of those, and then we also saw the community take and run with a whole bunch of these, integrated into llama.cpp. It's in Ollama as well, which is super fun and easy to use. It's on all of your major platforms, Fireworks, Together, many of these kinds of things as well. So it's been a real joy to see just the traction of where do developers want to use modern AI tools, and then Gemma sort of coming into all of those spots has been really inspiring to me.
What's like a typical use case?
I guess one thing that people would like to do first of all is chatting with a machine. So that's something that people like to do, like to ask questions, get feedback from that. I guess summarization is also another task that people like to have a long text and, hey, explain this to me in bullet points. The other thing that people like to do is fine-tune the model to make it more specialized for specific tasks. That's something that people like to do. And when we talk about open models, we also talk about people that really like to hack, to make changes, to try different things. And Gemma is perfect for that because it's an open model. People can go and see the code and can have it on their machine and do things, while private APIs will not allow that for many, many reasons. So of course there's some pros and cons there, but some people really like doing that. What else have you seen these people doing?
So there are so many cool things that I see people doing in here. I'm going to highlight one of them, which is actually from a Kaggle user named Carl McBride Ellis. And maybe we can actually even link the notebook here in the description. But his Kaggle notebook is called Gemma. I'm replacing myself with an LLM. So, he used fine-tuning, he used LoRa fine-tuning with his own data to, replicate the way that he talks, et cetera. So things like that are amazing. I have a very similar setup actually at my own house where I've fine-tuned a model and I trained it to talk like me using my emails and things that I've written, personal things that I've written as well. And I wrote a little service where I just press one hotkey combination and it sort of keeps on writing what I was writing before, but with my voice. And it is just pure joy, right? It is whether or not I'm ever going to build a business off the back of that or something like that, looking at something and saying, hey, I want something that actually does sound like me, that sounds like my voice. And oftentimes it will say something ridiculous, hilarious, strange, wrong. I mean, but I do that too, I guess. And I think that those sorts of things are really cool. On a more commercial aspect, let's say that you wanted to run a website that was about, buying flowers, and you said, hey, what are the most appropriate flowers for Mother's Day or something like that? Then, you could even specify a lot of, very strange additions. My mom is allergic to daisies or something along those lines. And it will actually do a pretty good job if you fine tune it in order to give you very specific things for that exact use case. I'm really excited to see what people do with it, but generally things like Gemma will be very good for summarization. They'll be very good for, lightweight applications of language understanding, document processing, all of that kind of stuff.
And that personalization that you were talking about, like personalizing your model, but also personalizing the outcomes that it generates as well.
Yeah, I think personalization is one of those real gems of what we're able to do with modern AI. And yeah, so
I saw what you did
Gus
there.
Gus is pointing at me. Part of the inspiration for the model family name Gemma comes from the Latin gemma, which means gem, right? Okay. And so, we want people to make precious things, at least precious to them, with Gemma. And we're hoping that they sort of take some of the ability to tune, some of the ability to optimize and to run anywhere, and they make things that are appropriate for their life. Personalization being one of the biggest opportunities of the modern AI era, because I don't think that you and I learn the same way. And I think it's crazy that we try to teach kids the same way.
Right.
You sit in the same class,
Right.
You have the same lectures,
Right.
You do the same homework. And that can be good in some ways, but if you're a visual learner and I'm not, shouldn't we treat you different? Shouldn't you actually learn in a different way? And I think that's what we're hoping researchers, developers, et cetera, explore with models like Gemma.
We also just finished our event, the Gemma Developer Day here in London, and it was super cool. Lots of new developments around Gemma, some new tutorials, lots of cool demos that were all recorded. Will be available to you all. If they're not available right now, will be in the next week or so. How do you see that, Tris? How do you see that excitement around the launch?
It's amazing to me because, of course, I'm very excited. I've worked on this for a while with you, Gus. You and I have been there working on this for quite some time. But to see other people's really palpable excitement around what they might build with Gemma, how they might use the models, how they might use the tool chains, inference and SFT that we built around Gemma has been genuinely astounding. And I think the event has been really fascinating to watch it develop. More philosophically, taking a step back here, it's really important to me, and I think to you as well, that we engage the community, that we get people together. Development works better when people are actually together, when you care about each other, when it's a real community.
Too. It fuels innovation and a collaboration too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you put people together, they build new things that you would never expect. And so we saw some of that at the Gemma Developer Day, and really excited to see how that keeps on going. We hope to keep that train going. So look for developer events in your area. Please come contribute to our community, because we can't do this alone. This isn't just about Google or DeepMind. This is about everybody in the world having a stake, having a say in what the future of AI should be.
In terms of contributing, I would say that the other venues that people can bring their love for the models is we have 2 Kaggle competitions running right now where they're based on Gemma. So if you want to, you can learn from our documentation for the samples, and then you can just go apply on these competitions and learn more with the community. There's a lot of discussions in their forum. So it's a great time to learn things. As Tris was mentioning earlier, like people can learn anything now. And I guess what we are providing here is that you can learn about large language models, open model with Gemma. We gave you everything we could, and we're continuing on that journey to give you information and resources. And I think that can bring us to how this is an open model, right?
So one thing that I maybe if I can add one thing here, Gus,
yes.
Like you skipped over my something that's important in the Kaggle competitions, and that I love Kaggle personally. These competitions come with pretty good prize pools. If I recall correctly, the individual one is a $50,000 prize pool. The team one is $200,000. I mean, these are not insignificant sums of money. So, you can go, you can commune with some of the best modelers and AI people in the world. Really excited to see what you build on Kaggle.
100%.
Sorry about that.
No, you're correct. I'm really thinking, how can I compete being a Googler? I know they don't allow, but maybe I can register my daughter that she's competing. But
I have my dog here, Bear. She's sleeping on the floor. If Bear, Warkentin somehow manages to win a prize.
I guess
just kidding.
It can bring us to one question I'd like to, because you also worked in the TensorFlow team. And now we're working with Gemma to make it open. How do you see the open community? Because this is something, when I'm working with you, I saw your passion for, we need to bring this to the community external. It's not only a Google thing. Everyone has to participate, be part. And what can you say about the open community, the open source community, and stuff like that?
Absolutely. Google has a very long history of working on open source and AI. And I also think it's a great opportunity to sort of talk a little bit about the difference between open source and open models, which is a pretty important distinction for us here at Google and at Google DeepMind. So first, Gemma is an open model. And what that means is that we release the model weights, we release a whole slew of inference and supervised fine-tuning, reference implementations across a wide variety of hardware, et cetera. But we didn't release details about the data sets. We didn't release, training code that you could re-implement the model from scratch, for example. In this era, we're trying to balance the way that we look at openness versus as well some of the risks that are proposed by frontier AI, right? And so we're trying to lead with safety and responsibility. To me, that's one of the most exciting parts of Gemma. We launched a new generative responsible AI toolkit with the initial Gemma release, and we're relatively confident that Gemma is the safest and most responsible approach that we could take at this time to an open model release. I really, really think that this is important for the industry, is to both tackle the balance between complete openness and how that interacts with things like PII or sensitive data that might be in pre-training data sets, that we've seen several of these issues arise across the industry recently. And I think being able to lead a conversation around responsibility and something that we hope the community will extend, that's really, really important to me and the researchers that work on Gemma as well.
So what does that mean, being responsible, or responsibility, and having that applied to the models that you build or that you fine-tune?
So I think we have a variety of classes of harms that we try to minimize. So we do very extensive data filtering, very extensive fine-tuning, very extensive evaluations and red teaming, including extensive human evaluations for a wide variety of risks, spanning sexualization, violent speech, hate speech, things like that, as well as chemical weapons, nuclear risk, things that sound a little bit more pie in the sky, like what could a language model possibly do? But we need to set up standards and communities in the AI era that will enable us to measure those risks, take them seriously, communicate about them transparently with regulators and with all of society. Because even if those aren't significant risks today, arguably, they're something that we believe could be, important for the future. And we want to make sure that we are being transparent and helping bring the world along. This is a conversation with society at large, not even just the developer community, but it's critical that we get this right with everybody in the world. And so to me, responsibility means that everybody can both understand what we're doing with AI and that they can have a say in how we end up building this as humanity, not as Google, not as other research labs or other development houses.
Right, because it means ultimately that these open models are open to everybody and anybody to use them and to do kind of what they want with them, which on such a positive side just spurs innovation and research and new ways of doing things and creating things. But at the same time, there's a certain level of risk as well of sort of putting it into the hands of anybody out there.
I think we need a much better absolute measurement of the level of risk, I think, across a wide variety of categories. What is really important to me is that, one, we are not increasing any type of risk overall for what's available in the world. And so we try very hard to measure and mitigate that risk as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's a principle that we will hold to for as long as we're building AI things.
Yeah.
Because, we want the world to experience AI in a safe and responsible way.
Yeah. What a great way to end.
I appreciate it.
This is perfect. Yeah.
Very good.
Great.
Very
Thank
good.
you so much.
I love talking with you guys. It's a real joy. Gus, you're an inspiration to me in all ways, but especially after seeing you launch all the cool stuff in Gemma, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ashley, as always, wonderful to see you. Thank you for the insightful questions, keeping me honest as much as possible.
Congratulations to both of you on the launch of Gemma. This is very exciting. It's awesome to see the community participate and generate some amazing things. And what an honor to have you both here to be able to talk about it in person. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And everybody watching at home or listening at home, I hope you'll join us on the Gemma journey and build your own things with Gemma and tell us about it, because I think it's easy to get started and hopefully you build something great.
Can't wait to see what you build.
I really can't wait to see what you build.
If you would like to learn more about our conversation or our guests, check out the links below. Please subscribe, and if you're feeling extra generous, give us a 5-star rating. We would love to hear from you, so leave us a comment. We'll read every one. Until next time, thank you for listening.